Good morning,
Good morning,
Secretary Schmidt. Thank you for you and your team being here today and engaging in this conversation with us. And I want to continue along that line of conversation. You began with the chairman, the good gentleman from Jefferson County, with regard to voter registration and education. A $5.2 million increase, which translates into a 953% increase for that line item. It's a lot of money. So in September of 2022, the governor signed an executive order for the expansion of voter registration opportunities throughout Pennsylvania by increasing the number of state agencies to be designated as a voter registration distribution agency. Big title. Was that order part of the result of an increase, a significant increase in that line item as a result of costs being incurred to the Department of State?
For the 5.2 million that you're referencing? No, that's a separate thing altogether.
So what other agencies are designated as voter registration distribution agencies, and are those costs being incurred by those agencies?
For much of it, it's a matter of providing other agencies, just as the counties do with county libraries and post offices and all the rest, with materials should they need them, or encouraging them, whether it's on their website or anywhere else, to provide a portal for voters to register electronically if they choose to register that way.
Okay. So has the Department of State entertained, I know we went down this path of automatic voter registration. We've made some changes. You, through the governor, now have that available through PennDOT's motor vehicle offices. Were there any additional costs incurred by the Department of State for that initiative for voter registration?
No, Department of State, even though it's implemented by PennDOT in consultation with the Department of State pays for the costs of whatever. Anytime there's any change to a screen, even changing some wording, and we're changing some wording actually from feedback from your colleague from Cambria, that would make that process more accessible, make the wording a little more clear. Senator Langerholt mentioned, like, when we walked senators through this process, voters could come away with a different impression. You want to make sure it's as clear as possible. So anytime we do any updates like that, and we've communicated that to PennDOT to implement, we would incur the cost of those changes.
Okay.
But
and is that reflected in that $5.2 million line item, or does that come under IT costs?
It would come under IT costs.
Okay.
It was already something occurred unless we make additional changes, like the one that we're seeking to change, which again, in that case, is just some wording. It's not even interfacing where the interaction is any different. The main cost savings that comes from voters registering electronically, as I mentioned, is it takes about 3 times as long to process a paper application as an electronic. Electronics are more accurate, so it's a reduced burden for the counties because of the amount of time it takes.
That's interesting to note. Has the Department of State entertained automatic voter registration for individuals seeking concealed carry permits?
No, but that's something we can discuss with you about how best to implement.
I think that would be a good way. Those are people who are already being vetted through a process, and I would look forward to having that conversation with you.
And it would be important that that interface do what PennDOT currently does, which when you're at PennDOT, you're not only providing proof of identity, you're providing proof of citizenship. That system knows your age, so you won't interface if you're younger than 18. It knows that you're a citizen of the United States. You won't ever see those screens if you're not a citizen of the United States. So any additional expansion of it would have to make sure that proof of citizenship and all the rest is taken into account.
Absolutely, and I think that's a pretty significant vetting process in and of itself. And I just wanted to touch on this briefly in terms of the department's focus on its outreach and education efforts. There was a lot of conversation about reaching rural areas. I know that in the legislation that created the Election Integrity Grant Program, there's a specific formula in there to assure sure that those dollars are fairly distributed throughout the Commonwealth and across the counties. Is there any type of formula for this outreach and education efforts that you spoke to earlier?
We would, in consultation with firms that specialize in this area, make sure that the approach, other than if it involves anything other than direct mail or postcards or all the rest with a hotline number on it and all the rest, that it would be uniform and that it would touch every voter equally.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.